President, Chief of Staff, Senior Minister, Ministers of State, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Ghanaians. Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen of the media, to Jubilee House, the seat of our nation's presidency. We almost missed our promised rendezvous of at least two press conferences in a year, but we have made it. And as the saying goes, better late than never. We've all been busy. I know I've been busy, but not too busy to know that thanks to technology, you're all able to track my activities every day and often in real time. I wonder, therefore, if there's any harm done if we're not able to get around to a formal gathering such as this often. But nonetheless, I'm glad that we're all gathered here, as I intend to hold on to my promise. At this time of the year, I should start by wishing all of you a Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year. So let us get on to the business of our gathering. I'm happy to report that I have paid a working visit to all 10 regions within the year, as I did in my first year, and plan to do every year of my mandate. I like Jubilee House. I fought long and hard to get an office here, but I have to admit, it is always invigorating to go out and meet the people in their own communities. Nothing beats seeing and hearing things for yourself. For example, going around the country means that I know at first hand that many of our roads are in a bad state. But that is not a new discovery to me. The distressing deficit in our infrastructure has been a running sore for our country for ages, despite the invisible, unprecedented infrastructural developments of yesteryear. I know that we need to open up our country, build roads, bridges, airports, railways, and make it easier for the people and goods to move around. This infrastructure deficit poses the biggest challenge in trying to deal with our development needs. I'm glad to be able to report that we have started on a comprehensive program to tackle this problem. Ladies and gentlemen, we are resurrecting the railways. The existing narrow gauge network, which had almost disappeared and led to a generation of young Ghanaians hardly knowing about railways, is coming alive. Rehabilitation work on the 56-kilometer narrow gauge line from Kujukrum to Takwa through Nsuta is nearing completion. This will lead to the restoration of passenger rail services from Takwa to Takoradi for the first time since 2007. The freight service from the manganese mine at Nsuta to Takoradi is in operation, and the ongoing rehabilitation has also led to a spectacular reduction in the number of derailments and incidents that occur on the line. When I went to see the works on the railway lines for myself, I was particularly touched by the enthusiasm of the workers. The Ghana Railway Company Limited, with its own workforce, started rehabilitation works on the 70.8-kilometer narrow gauge section of the Eastern Railway line from Accra to Nsawam and Accra to Tema. They did not have or need any foreign experts, so-called. They had the expertise, and those who did not were ready to learn, and they certainly had enough enthusiasm to carry them through. Rehabilitation of the Achimota to Tema section of the line is approximately 90% complete, and test runs have commenced. Work is ongoing on the Achimota to Accra Central section of the line and the Achimota to Nsawam section, and I've been assured that this will be completed before the end of the year. 10 existing passenger coaches have also been refurbished, ready to be pressed into action when commuter services reopen on this line. We're not only rehabilitating the old narrow gauge line. I'm happy to report that the procurement process is far advanced to develop a new standard gauge line for the Eastern Railway line and others to have a network that covers the whole country. A major difficulty, which could slow down the work of this exciting development, is the nuisance posed by encroachers. I want to take this opportunity to appeal again to all citizens to join in and be part of this exciting development and not place any hindrances in the path of bringing modern railways to our country. There is excitement and a lot of activity in the aviation sector, and it is good to note the entry of 2 new private airlines offering services along the domestic routes. We welcome the competition, as this is bringing down the prices for customers. Terminal 3 at Kotoka International Airport is open for business and attracting a lot of positive comments. I expect that the managers of this facility will maintain it at the highest standards. The airports at Ho and Wa are ready, and we await the commercial flights that have been promised. If the railways and aviation sectors are causing excitement, I can promise that there will be even greater excitement when work on repairing and building many roads around the country intensifies. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sino-Hydro project is about to take off. This $2 billion United States barter deal that we have negotiated with China should bring a dramatic and very welcome change to our infrastructure developments, especially in the road sector. The roads that are going to be tackled first under the facility have been enumerated, and they should make a great and immediate difference to the lives of many people. The first $650 million worth of projects has been approved by Parliament and are ready for execution. It is now up to our professionals who will be supervising and working on the projects to make sure that we get value for money. I'm aware that there is some anxiety among some people that we might be putting ourselves in a position of too much dependency on China. Ladies and gentlemen, for far too long, the lack of money has hampered our development and dampened our self-confidence. I'm determined that we should use what opportunities there are to raise ourselves out of poverty, but there is no chance that I would ever preside over the loss of Ghana's sovereignty to any foreign country. The settlement of our obligation is through the supply of aluminum products to China. We have resisted any attempt to export the raw material for the settlement. That is why we've established the Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation, a statutory corporation, to take charge of the development of the full value chain of our bauxite resources. The corporation is ready to begin work. Not only is this an innovative way to undertake our infrastructure development, but it also enables us to establish an industry with a metal, which is described as the metal of the future, and which can be a major catalyst for our industrialization. In the almost 2 years that we've been privileged to run the affairs of our country, everything we have done has been aimed at building a strong economy. A month ago, the Minister for Finance went to Parliament and gave us a candid view of the state of affairs of the economy. He presented a compelling one and one of hope, because it is clear that now, as a result of our policies, the fundamentals of our economy are in the right place. The foundation has been laid for the rapid growth and development we expect next year and succeeding years. The 2019 budget focuses on 6 strategic pillars: entrepreneurship, infrastructure, industrialization, social intervention, agricultural modernization, and improving efficiency in revenue mobilization. Available data up to the end of September 2018 indicates that Ghana's economic health is in good shape. Headline and core inflation generally trended downwards in 2018. Headline inflation dropped to 9.3% in November 2018, down from the 11.8% in December 2017. In real terms, growth of credit to the private sector showed a strong recovery, registering a growth of 6.8% in September 2018, compared to a contraction of 2.3% in 2017. Interest rates eased downwards in line with the reduction in the monetary policy rate. The interbank weighted average lending rate declined to 4.7% to 16.3% between September 2017 and September 2018. Treasury securities also declined over the period. In other words, the fundamentals are all pointing in the right direction. Even though there is little doubt that salaries and wages continue to be low, an increase in income levels can only come about by the expansion and growth of the economy. And that is exactly what we're working to achieve. I'm confident that there will be welcome news on that front soon. It is also quite clear that when it comes to the expenditure pattern in our public finances, we're not doing that well. Public sector salaries and wages are still taking too large a share, a percentage of our public sector finances. And that is why there's never enough money left for us to finance all the things we need to do. Revenue mobilization is still inadequate. Not enough people are paying taxes or paying at the proper rate, and too much economic activity still takes place without any formal records. The government has put in place many measures to formalize and modernize our economy. It is the fairest and fastest way to achieve what we all aspire to. The introduction of the paperless operations at the port, the interoperability of mobile money transactions, the national identity card rollout, e-business registration system, and access to digital financial services are all part of the drive to formalize our economy and enhance its productivity. A critical element is the National Digital Property Addressing System, which aims to generate digital addresses for individuals and commercial properties, and also provide navigation capabilities that helps with the ease of finding location. The system has already attained some milestones. There are 1.2 million registered and verified addresses. The system has also recorded 7,787,899 address searches, 11,000 tagged properties, and 20,000 digital address deliveries. I project that we can find addresses without resort to the second turn on the left after the blue kiosk, and that the banks should be able to lend money to the private sector at much lower rates. Verifiable addresses should come with lower interest rates. Ladies and gentlemen, we expect that the digitization process will help ease the problems that come with our land tenure system, and investors can lease and acquire title to lands without the fear of having to litigate in the courts for years over the same piece of land that had been sold allegedly to many other people. Speaking about lands leads me inexorably to the physical state of our lands and water bodies. Last Friday, that high-minded public servant, the world-acclaimed Ghanaian scientist, Professor Kwabena Frimpong-Boateng, chairperson of the Government Interministerial Committee on Small-Scale Mining, announced the measures that government is undertaking to regularize the mining sector and enforce mining laws. He indicated inter alia the circumstances under which the ban on legitimate small-scale mining has been lifted. Let me reiterate clearly here that the ban on galamsey, i.e. illegal mining, has not been lifted and will not be lifted. Some of our media collaborators in the fight against galamsey have, in response to this statement, expressed their dismay at what they see as the government having lost the will to fight galamsey. The ban on small-scale mining was never intended to be permanent. It was to enable government fashion a policy that will sanitize the sector and ensure that in future, small-scale mining, which has been with us for centuries, will not damage our environment. The measures announced last Friday do exactly that. I cannot and will not give up on the fight to protect our environment. I entreat the media and all well-intentioned Ghanaians to continue to join the fight to protect our lands and water bodies. Ladies and gentlemen, the protection of the environment is uppermost in our considerations as we seek to bring rapid development to the people. 1,000 units of 10-seater water closet institutional toilets with mechanized boreholes are currently under construction around the country, and so are 1,000 community-based limited solar-powered mechanized water systems. Each constituency is getting a minimum of 3 of these institutional toilets and water systems under the Special Development Initiatives and the Development Authorities. I notice that there's room for constituency priority infrastructure needs under which the constituencies pick what they identify as their priority need. I believe there's a lesson in there for all of us by simply taking a look at the diversity of priority needs: community centers, police posts, street lights, culverts, etc. The procurement process will enable every constituency to get 1 ambulance each in the early part of next year. This will not solve the ambulance problem immediately, but it certainly shows more commitment to finding a solution than we've ever seen. Lots of things are happening in the health sector, including the fact that this government has paid up the 1.2 billion arrears we inherited and brought the operations of the NHIS back to life. We're also in the process of launching the world's largest and most advanced medical drone delivery network. The 4 distribution centers from where the drones will be operating will stock 148 life-saving and essential medical supplies, and not only blood. The drone delivery service will save lives, decrease wastage in the system, guarantee health access for more than 14 million people nationwide, and employ over 200 Ghanaians. This program is not going to be run on the public budget. Corporate social responsibility contributors from private sector's players will pay for the service. I prefer drones flying to deliver essential medicines to our people than an investment in guinea fowls that allegedly fly off to Burkina Faso without any trace. In all we do, we want to ensure that health officials are well trained, reasonably content with their conditions, and able to practice their professions, so we can all have the confidence to entrust our lives into their hands. The prosperity we seek for our people can only be attained when our people are healthy. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in many years, there's an abundance of food. And I noticed that prices of foodstuffs are low, and in some cases, there's a glut. We're currently exporting plantain to some of our neighbors. Quite a turnaround from when I was lamenting 2 years ago that we were importing plantains from Côte d'Ivoire. We also did not import a single grain of maize this year. It is not often we have such good news, and it must mean that if you invest in agriculture, you get results. Planting for food and jobs is working, and I look forward to rice joining the list of foodstuffs we're no longer importing. I also look forward to meat and fish becoming abundant under the Rearing for Food and Jobs program, and our farmers being rich and satisfied with their lot in life. I encourage all of us to look on farming as the serious business that it is. Radical measures are being taken to establish a solid infrastructure for our agriculture. The imminent availability of significant numbers of tractors and the enhancement of agricultural mechanization centers, the construction of 80 warehouses this year for the storage of surplus food, the revival of the National Food and Buffer Stock Company, and the recent establishment of the Commodities Exchange. All these are being done to modernize and transform Ghanaian agriculture to serve as a major growth pole for the economy. Despite the dramatic decline in the world market prices for cocoa, we maintain the producer price paid to farmers as a sign of our commitment to them. We are on course to realizing the 1 million ton mark for our cocoa production and seeing to the increasing domestic processing of the product. Our alliance with Côte d'Ivoire to change the dynamics of the global cocoa industry is also on course to enable us, the producers, and obtain an increasing share of the industry's value chain. It is good news for our farmers. One of the highlights of my year was sitting through a morning of what we call the presidential pitch, where young people who had been trained to turn their entrepreneurial ideas into businesses made presentations. I felt pleased and happy that the future was bright for our country. The entrepreneurial spirit is growing among the youth, and that has to be good. It is also being manifested in the fact that we're paying greater attention to technical and vocational subjects in schools and training institutions, and encouraging those who want to pursue such trades and professions. Free SHS gets all the headlines, but I encourage you to look at all the other interesting, dynamic things that are happening in education in our country. Of course, free SHS deserves to get the headlines. We have held our nerves, and Ghanaians have come to accept that every child deserves a secondary education. We have not got enough classrooms or desks or laboratories or computers or dormitories. But children once born cannot wait until we get enough Prempeh colleges and holy childs around the country before they can attend secondary school. In addressing this youth, government with ingenuity and innovation has, through the Ghana Education Trust Fund, secured a $1.5 billion US dollar facility to help develop infrastructure in our schools. Parliamentary approval has been obtained, and the first tranche of this facility will be used to build more classroom blocks and dormitories in our schools to give our schools appropriate facilities to meet the demands of the 21st century. And so we are on double track. And we're building the classrooms and laboratories and gradually turning the once deprived schools into well-equipped ones. We find that paying attention to the proper management of schools means we're getting better results. The area to show the results really would be when school is over and we see the quality of products that emerge. Would we have the literate, numerate, and well-trained workforce that Ghana needs to be able to compete on the world stage? As we've been making our voices heard on the international stage, some countries are beginning to take a chance on us. It is not every day that Volkswagen, Nissan, and Sinotrack offer to build assembly plants in your country round about the same time. We would have to demonstrate through our expertise, our work culture, and attitude that they have taken the right decision. Systematically, we're also rolling out our one district, one factory policy of industrialization. Thus far, 79 projects have been implemented under 1D1F, with another 35 going through credit appraisal by officials in the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the financial institutions that are supporting the program. Under the stimulus package, $237 million United States dollars have been dispersed to 16 companies, with an additional 35 being considered for support. The process of industrialization will be accelerated in the course of 2019. The possible creation of new regions, the first such exercise by democratic constitutional means in our history, has made rapid progress. And in a week's time, voting will take place in the referenda to decide if we should have 6 new regions. I'm grateful to the people who have put in all the hard work to bring us this far. And I trust that the new leadership of the Electoral Commission will pass well their first test of organizing a free, fair, transparent poll. I pray and expect that the voting will go off peacefully. There can be no excuse for any disturbance or violence. The people who seek new regions are not seeking to secede from Ghana. They are Ghanaian citizens who are seeking new administrative structures to guide their lives by a constitutionally sanctioned process within the Ghanaian space. The Supreme Court has unanimously confirmed and validated the propriety of the process. Let us then leave them in peace to have their day and see whether they can satisfy the high constitutional threshold for the creation of new regions. It is, of course, during times like these that we all realize what a great debt of gratitude we owe to our security services. As the policemen at a roadblock tend to say, when you come across them in the night on your way home from an outing, they are being beaten by mosquitoes so we can be safe. No, I'm not recommending you give money to the policemen, but it is true that they keep us safe. I'm happy that we're gradually being able to give them the tools they require to perform their duties. A few months ago, I presented the police service with 200 new vehicles. The National Fire Service and other agencies are all being stocked. The exercise to recruit 4,000 young people to the police service is on, so that the increased numbers will make their work easier. The Ghana Armed Forces continue to perform their duty of guarding and protecting the integrity of Ghana. They have been in operations Calm Life, Cow Leg, Halt, and Ahojo to maintain law and order. They've also participated in Operation Vanguard to reduce illegal mining and environmental degradation, and Operation Roadstar to construct a 40-acre cattle ranch to accommodate some 8,000 cattle at Wawawase, Afram Plains, as part of the measures to stop the perennial nomadic herdsman menace. Already, 4,000 cattle are enclosed there. A legislative instrument has passed Parliament that has increased the duration of the service years of the other ranks from 25 to 30 years. Construction is going on to deal with the housing needs of our armed forces. This year, as they have done consistently for more than 40 years, the Ghana Armed Forces has contributed about 2,746 men and women to serve in peacekeeping efforts around the world. I'm glad to see that the proactive measures being taken have helped to reduce the incidence of vigilantism associated with members of the ruling party. I'm determined to stamp it out completely, as well as any other sources of vigilantism that may emerge. I've said that I've been busy, and indeed, apart from going around all 10 regions of Ghana, I've also done quite a bit of traveling around the world to continue with the marketing of our country abroad and seeing to the representation of our nation at important international meetings at the highest level. Quite a number of world leaders have also visited Ghana. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel was here, and so was the French President Emmanuel Macron. So was the Emir of Qatar, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. And so was the heir to the British throne, Prince Charles, and his wife, Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, and the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, has also paid us this week a visit of encouragement. I believe all these interactions help to illuminate the progress we are making in Ghana. Government has increased the funding for the accountability institutions of our state, such as Parliament, the Judiciary, the Office of the Attorney General, SHRAD, and the Auditor General. 2017 witnessed a 12.2% increase in allocations to these 5 institutions over that of 2016. The financial endowment for the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor has also been made. I have no doubt that we will hear from the Special Prosecutor when he is ready. The institution of the Office of the Special Prosecutor does not mean that the Office of the Attorney General no longer functions. Indeed, the prosecutions the Office has initiated in the last year and a half, the Republic versus Stephen Opuni, Seydou Agongo, and Agricult Limited, the Republic versus Ernest Thompson and others, and the Republic versus Bafuboni and others, involved the alleged willful loss or theft in the period of the last government of some 556 million cedis. This past year, the Office of the Attorney General has also been busy vigorously defending the state in many civil cases and has won so many cases for government. I suspect the word has gone out that the government of Ghana is no longer the soft touch she was reputed to be. Every case brought against the government will be vigorously defended, and the days of easy judgment deaths are over. Ladies and gentlemen, we inherited a financial system that was under a considerable state of distress, with banks that were known to be insolvent as far back as 2015, and banks that had been licensed without the requisite capital. Some of these banks were surviving day to day only by virtue of liquidity support from the Bank of Ghana, with the underlying problems that plague them remaining unresolved. To protect depositors' funds, as well as to prevent contagion from these failed banks to the rest of the financial system, the new administration of the Bank of Ghana took some courageous measures in the public interest to clean up the banking system and to put it on a stronger and more resilient path. There is no doubt that the failure of the 7 banks came at a cost to the Ghanaian taxpayer and staff of the affected banks. However, the decisions taken by the Bank of Ghana and the financial support government provided through the establishment and funding of Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited ensured that deposits of more than 1.5 million customers with deposit values of over 10 billion cedis and about 70% of the 5,000 jobs in the affected banks were saved. This was important to alleviate the severe adverse outcomes that could have occurred. It is important that the cost of these interventions, which were borne by taxpayers, are recovered to the extent possible through recoveries from debtors, shareholders, and related and connected parties who took money from the defunct banks. The receivership processes are ongoing, and the receivers are making great strides in their recovery efforts. Amounts in excess of 400 million cedis have so far been recovered by the receivers of the 2 banks closed last year. The government has set up a special investigations team to undertake criminal investigations into the failures of all 7 banks for possible prosecutions by the relevant state agencies. No one found complicit will be spared. The Bank of Ghana is conducting its own internal investigations into the conduct of its officials, past and present, that could have facilitated wrongdoing at these banks. At the same time, the recapitalization efforts by banks have been very successful so far, with about 22 banks already meeting the new minimum capital requirement of 400 million cedis, well in advance of the 31st December deadline. The 22 banks that have met the new requirement include a good number of indigenous banks. A few others are in the final stages of meeting this requirement. I'm confident that at the end of the exercise, we will have a stronger, more resilient banking sector with a strong indigenous presence, well positioned to finance the next phase of our agenda of economic growth. The interest of major oil companies in Ghana has become dramatic. Today, oil companies such as the American giant ExxonMobil and the Norwegian conglomerate Aker have signed petroleum exploration agreements with Ghana. Through the launch of the Ghana Oil and Gas Licensing Rounds 2018, the bidding processes for the allocation of new petroleum rights to prospective investors, the first such exercise in our history. Other global players, such as BP, Kunuk Group, and Total, have expressed interest in coming to Ghana. We anticipate, as a result, an increase in crude oil production from the current 200,000 barrels per day to 500,000 barrels per day in the medium term and to 1 million barrels per day in the long term. The Ghana National Petroleum Company, on its part, is conducting a geochemical analysis and will soon start a two-dimensional seismic survey over the northern and southern sectors of the Volta-Ain Basin. Successful results of this survey will pave the way for exploration and drilling activities to begin. This year is an important one in the economic history of Ghana. We are about to exit at the end of the year from our 17th IMF program since we joined the institution. We're doing so on a good note and expect that the two remaining reviews in January and April next year will be completed successfully. The presence here earlier this week of Madame Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the IMF, who expressed clearly her support of the current management of the economy, is in this regard a good omen. The most important lesson that we must derive from our IMF experience is that we cannot afford any longer any disarray in our public finances, the reason for our demand for IMF assistance. Government will legislate in this meeting of Parliament a fiscal rule that will cap permissible fiscal deficits at a maximum of 5% and a debt to GDP ratio of a maximum of 65%. It is my intention to anchor the implementation of this fiscal rule that will provide stability to our economy by establishing a presidential advisory fiscal council composed of eminent Ghanaian economists who will provide independent advice to the president on how to comply with the fiscal rule. We have everything to gain from discipline in the management of our public finances. It is the foundation for sustainable, rapid growth of the economy. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen of the media, a great deal of work is being done in so many areas so that we can turn our back on our recent era of failure and set our country on the path of sustainable, rapid development and growth. I'm excited about the prospects of Ghana, and I invite you to share in this excitement, which will see the Black Star shining brightly again. I thank you very much for your attention.